This video shows the latest updates for the audit control. As mentioned in the previous post, this video will try to cover the charting part of the audit data. I decided to move the charting part from the dashboard control and walls control to the audit control itself. In doing so, I had to copy code, in other words, controls I have used in dashboard control and query helper control and monitor control, and change it to meet the requirements I have for this audit control. The video shows the filtering option for the main application data grid, followed by the monitor control, which uses a different version of dashboard control, followed by showing the generation of the TSQL statement I implemented for the query helper control. Part of all these controls, an important part of the code in each control, was copied in other controls in order for me to use them in the audit control. This was needed because those controls were not written to be in universal control that can be used in all scenarios. So, as you can see, I implemented filtering for the table, and I changed the control I used in the monitoring to allow multiple chart types, multiple selection for the values together with the possibility of choosing the aggregate function for that value. A data grid was added to show the outcome of the choices made by selecting an option for group, by pivot by, and value. By default, the chart is charting data for the first numeric column from that table grouped by the first non-numeric column from that table, where table is what we see in the data grid. Sometimes because of this, the chart shows things which in other tools you might not see, because the transition or the code they have for allowing a chart to be displayed covered possible scenarios. In my case, although I tried to cover, I was not able because my code is growing incrementally from a basic proof of concept to more than that by fixing all the shortcomings that arise for having in the beginning code only for a proof of concept. The error you see while the x-axis is datetime and mouse is over the canvas is because I kept for this new control the same variable I used for the monitor dashboard, and of course the code took a path that it shouldn't. The returning to the audit control after choosing another control ended up with another bug, which was caused by the fact that monitor dashboard control had a fixed height for the canvas, while for this new control, I had to change the approach since the height of the control depends. On top of that, in the new control, I added that expander to show the data, and that affected also the way in which the canvas was displaying the data during the increase and decrease of the view box due to the space being used by the data grid control to display the data. Both issues are fixed as we speak. The other control which was enhanced was the dashboard control, which gives the possibility to choose the source of the data that you want to chart. This control might be used to manually set the data source and help you build a basic query for it, but also could be used to read the audit item history table and take from there all the generated tables for our audit items and build an initial chart. The problem with building an initial chart is that it doesn't lead in 90% of the cases, as you could see, to the expected outcome you want, which is a meaningful chart for a meaningful data, which is why I believe this control will be used only to input data manually and save them in DB and launch and draw the charts based on this previous saved data. As we speak, this control is 5 to 10% from what it needs to be because it covers only the selection of the instance, the DB, the table. Check if the table has a date-time column, choose the first one. Display the date-time filter, help you to graphically generate a query without typing and executing it. ID doesn't cover yet scenarios like, what if I want to write a query which will gather data from multiple tables in the same database or multiple databases and tables from the same SQL instance? What if I want to add to this manually typed query the date-time filtering generated? There are dozens of other scenarios like what if the server chosen is MySQL? If that will be the case, then everything will fail because the entire code to retrieve database names on drop-down events of those combo boxes was written for SQL Server. Also, as you could see, the code generated is a TSQL command, but in case the input data is coming from a result set already obtained and in memory, then we will have to parse that TSQL and convert it to the code I have, and that can be used to perform aggregations on in-memory data tables. Posts related to walls control shows that feature. For the next post, I choose to keep fixing the issues I have for this dashboard control for audit and provide the possibility to save that information in the database and loading it back from the database exactly as you could see that is done for dashboard control in the beginning of this video. If you kept watching and witnessed the last error in this presentation, let me tell you that I haven't found a workaround for it, since the error is because the query you see I am using as input for the data returns a year that is null. And because my column is named year, it takes on a path that I have for the situations in which user uses the date-time hierarchy, which is covered in posts related to charts. To summarize that the entire charting feature was covered in charts control, and slowly I started to move bits and parts of it to other controls like dashboard, monitor control, and so on. This situation led to duplicate code, fixing code in 10 places rather than one, and other issues, but these are expected when the application is written from zero with no planning and no limitations when it comes to what will be the end result.